As someone who's been playing video games over the last 7 console generations, I have seen a lot of things change. Some for the worse, some for the better. One thing I believe is getting worse is the in-store buying experience for physical games. Around 1989, when the Sega Genesis was out, I would head down to the store to buy a game. I would spend a long time looking at the fronts and backs of the game cases, trying to determine which one I should get. There were gaming magazines at the time, but a large portion of my decision was based on what was on those boxes. I still go into stores today to buy PS4 and Switch games. You don't depend as much on the box for your decision, because more than likely, you've already been on the internet to research which game you intend to buy. Or if you're like me, you research on the internet as you're in the store. I have no objection to the internet. It's likely the greatest invention of my lifetime. But the main reason I'm using it in the store as I'm browsing the games is because I can't get as much meaningful information from the game cases themselves. Specifically the backs of them. Take for instance the back of the PS4 game Battlezone, which I recently purchased from GameStop. Imagine making a decision to buy it if you don't have the internet. All you have to go on is 4 brief statements about the game, cobbled together with 3 very restricted screenshots. It's a very bare-bones effort to inform the buyer of what the game actually is. Nowhere do they mention that the game is based on a 1980s arcade game. I already knew it, but I bet 98% of those in the store that looked at this cover didn't realize it. Even knowing about its arcade roots, I still had to go on Wikipedia to find out more about the game before deciding to buy it. Those statements and screenshots are squished into the upper half of the case. The other half is a bunch of boxed messages and logos that tell you very little about the game itself. For simplicity, we'll call this entire section the partition. It would obviously be better if they got rid of many things in the partition and devoted more room to describing the game and providing more and wider screenshots. So what do we have in the partition? We got logos for Rebellion the Studio, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and Blu-ray. We also have a list of accessories required, the number of players, the amount of hard drive space required, online play options, the controller needed, the barcode, the website, the product code, the region, the location of the publisher, the rating, the reason for the rating, an epilepsy warning, and then the granddaddy of them all, a box containing the following: a disclaimer about VR sickness, terms of online play, where to find the licensing agreement, where to find the terms of service, where to find the privacy agreement, the country where the game was manufactured, a statement of the Blu-ray trademarks, the copyright text of Battlezone, and a statement of the studio's trademark. Look, the bottom line is, they are wasting the space on the back. Sure, you can argue that the number of players and what accessories are needed is vital information, and you have to have the barcode. But as for the rest of it, they should put it on the other side of the insert. Here's a mock-up I made that shows what can be done with the additional space. If you moved all the junk to the insert, you obviously have more room for screenshots and more text about the game. Now let's take a look at a Nintendo Switch game, Yoshi's Crafted World. It has pretty much the same kinds of things in the partition. There's some nice art, but the screenshots are teeny tiny, and a lot of the text is super small. It takes considerable effort to read it. When you do read the small text, you realize it's actually Spanish. They crammed in 2 different languages, each saying the same thing. I guess they can save money by being able to sell the exact same package in both English and Spanish-speaking countries. Screw that though, Nintendo has enough money, just make 2 different packages. Also, why is the Spanish smaller than the English? Is one more important than the other? So far I've been complaining a lot, but let's put things into perspective. Does the back of the game really matter anymore? Not as much, since there's so many places on the internet to get information. Also, many of us who are buying physical copies are purchasing them online, a process that most likely doesn't entail reading the back of the box. But still, I wish they could do more with the backs. Let's take a look at some old games and how their backs were handled. And let's also try to trace when things took a turn for the worse. Here's Valas 3, a 1991 Sega Genesis game. The size of the case is just about the same as a PS4 game. The logos, barcodes, and stuff like that only take about 20% of the back. This leaves more room for everything else. The description is a long paragraph describing the storyline and some of the play mechanics. There are 4 screenshots which show this is a side-scrolling game. It's easier to look at and more pleasing to look at, but best of all, you learn a lot about the game. Jumping to 2001, here's the back of Half-Life for the PS2, and it's beautiful. The emphasis is on showing off the game's graphics. You can see a little bit of increase in the size of the partition compared to the Genesis game, but it's definitely less dominant. Granted, the size of the PS2 cases are bigger than the PS4 cases, so they had more room to work with. Here's another one from the same time period. Otogi 2 for the original Xbox. Once again, it's beautiful. Let's jump forward another generation to the 2010 game You Don't Know Jack for the PS3. I think we now know when things began to spiral out of control. The partition is actually larger in size than the Battlezone one. There's 8 logos and legal text that goes on for a mile. GameStop slapped a sticker on top of the partition. They know it's a good place to put it because nobody's gonna read all that crap. Here's another game from the same generation, Forza 2 for the 360. It fares a lot better, mainly because the case is larger. And just for perspective, I'll take a minute to go back to the early 1980s, when the Atari 2600 was king. Here's the back of Pac-Man. They actually didn't fill the entire space. Maybe they didn't have much to say, but I bet it was because it cost a lot more money back then to print things on the back of boxes. So they kept it at a minimum. So what happened over the years to get where we are now? I can make an assumption based on years of experience at different workplaces. Upper management, middle management, and lawyers introduced new rules for companies to follow, while at the same time, not as many people within the companies work to eliminate existing rules. So the rules accumulate within the organization. The back of the game case is just a representation of what is going on inside large companies that have been around for a long time. I expect the partitions to get bigger as time goes on. We could lose the entire back cover, but then again, physical releases may die off long before that happens. That's all I have to say about that. If this is your first time watching a video from Gaming the Systems, let me mention that I'm a small channel that does game room tours, game reviews, and other things like the video you just watched. Please consider watching more. May your games make you happy and smart. I'll see you next time.